Appreciate the invitation. Like I said, I'm Greg Louden. I did a similar talk at the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, and want to do a similar thing here. And really, I'm going to talk about two different things. For the first part of the talk, I'm going to give you an overview of my career in the Army as a nuclear operations officer. And then I'm going to finish up and give you an overview. I retired about a year and a half ago. I work for a company called Louden-Pro2Serve up in Oak Ridge. Give you a couple of slides. There's no death by PowerPoint today. A little corporate overview. We talk about the things that I'm doing and give you an idea of some career opportunities related to nuclear radiological material in the national security arena. I understand the curriculum here is focused more on the power industry. I have I've seen reactors, I've never operated one. My career was more on the nuclear weapons and keeping folks from getting nuclear weapons. Are we good on the sound? Okay. Let me just start with a couple of what in the Army we call rules of engagement. So I want this to be more of a dialogue. I don't want to be talking at you, I want to talk with you. So if what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ramble on and tell a bunch of war stories. If there's something that piques your interest, let's dive in, ask a question. The other thing that I'm going to give a disclaimer on is in the government and the military, we use a lot of acronyms. I'm going to try my best not to use acronyms, but I can guarantee you I'm at least going to be 3 times where they're going to pop out without even trying. And I just need somebody to raise their hand and say, what did you just say? And I'll explain it. The other...
You're not going to let us know these particular state secrets, are you?
Well, that was going to be my next point. The last
I didn't know when to pause it. That's
yeah, the last thing is, and we kind of in the Q&A got into some questions that bordered on classified material. So if we go down one of those rabbit holes, I'm just going to have to say, that's a topic that we can't talk about here. Having said that, we're going to dive in. So the story starts back in Atlanta, Georgia. I went to my undergrad at Georgia Tech. I was awarded a Army ROTC scholarship and started out as a nuclear engineering student. And then my junior year, one of my Army instructors, Captain White, told me, Greg, this nuclear engineering stuff is great, but the Army is going to put you in the chemical corps in the Army. And the chemical corps officers during peacetime, there's one job that every chemical officer in the Army does, and that's a thing called the unit status report. So every month they fill out this huge paperwork on, okay, if the unit is supposed to have 24 dump trucks, how many dump trucks do you have, how many are working, how many soldiers do you have, how many soldiers are in school, how many soldiers are sick. And that's all chemical officers do in peacetime. So I just said, ooh, well, this doesn't sound good. Doesn't sound like what I want to do. So I went down and I switched majors into mechanical engineering. And at Georgia Tech, the School of Nuclear Engineering was under the School of Mechanical Engineering. So I actually got a mechanical engineering degree with a lot of electives, and all my optional coursework was still in the nuclear area, and was commissioned into the Army Corps of Engineers. My first assignment was over in Germany. This is during the end of the Cold War time, 89 to 92. So a great time to be in Germany. The wall came down. I got to go into Prague, Czechoslovakia. I was just telling a story about it. I saw Rolling Stones in 1989, first time that they had played behind the Iron Curtain. Got the opportunity. I was in a armored cavalry regiment and a combat engineer. So combat engineer's job is to put in obstacles, barbed wire, minefields, and then on defense, and then when we're on offense, breach enemy obstacles. So that opportunity to deploy to Desert Storm, we did that. I came back to the United States and was assigned to Fort Lewis, Washington, where I went So my first assignment was with a cavalry regiment, everybody's in vehicles, and then my second assignment was as a company commander in a light infantry brigade. So no vehicles, everything is on your back, a lot of walking, carrying a lot of weight. The highlight of that one was in 1995. We had a thing called the migrant crisis, where there was a lot of folks from Cuba and Haiti that were putting together rafts made out of styrofoam and trying to float themselves in the United States. So the Coast Guard was out there picking these folks up and then taking some to Panama and some to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And then eventually there was a riot in the camps in Panama, and a couple of soldiers were killed. And the Panamanian government said, you need to get these people out of the United States. You need to get them out of our country. So we had a huge exodus of flying Cuban migrants out of Panama into Guantanamo Bay. And then the State Department had a huge system. I mean, we literally took the golf course, the base golf course at Guantanamo Bay, put up tents and made camps for these folks. The opportunity there was, so some of these folks I mentioned had rioted in Panama and were not going to be allowed to go into the United States. So we got to do the first forced repatriation of Cuban nationals from Guantanamo Bay back to Havana. And so I got the opportunity to work with the U.S. Marshal Service. And there's a movie, I think it's called Con Air with Nicolas Cage. You've seen that movie where the U.S. Marshals actually had a plane like that. So we took these folks out, and these were not nice people. Like I said, they killed some soldiers. This is the original Camp X-Ray that in Guantanamo Bay. Took these people, gave them over to the U.S. Marshals. They put them in cages on the plane, took them back to Havana, and we really don't know what happened to them. Because it wasn't committed crimes in Havana, and we're afraid that they weren't going to get a very warm reception from Fidel Castro. So that was kind of the first 8 years of my life in the Army. Great time blowing stuff up and getting paid to do it. Nothing better. And then I had finished up my company command, and I had called my assignment officer, which we call flesh peddlers. So I called the assignment guy and said, listen, coming up on in my command, I want to go back to school. And kind of thinking about going back and getting a degree in environmental engineering. And so this guy, Tracy Smith, who I had called him before I was notified that I was getting deployed to go to Cuba. So I called Tracy and said, Tracy, I got 9 months left in command, I want to go to school. He said, great, go to Cuba, give me a call and get back. So I go to Cuba, do the thing with the plane, come back, call Tracy, ready to go to school. He said, great. We had a selection board 2 months ago. We didn't have an application packet in. I said, well, Tracy, what does that mean? He says, you're going to go to babysit an Army National Guard unit in Kentucky. I said, oh, that doesn't sound fun. So I had gotten a letter a couple of years before from a guy that ran the Army nuclear program. And he had gone through screening records of everybody, and on that transcript from Georgia Tech, there was all that N-word. So I called up this guy and said, listen, the engineer branch, I'm not going to let me go to school. Really like to go back to school. He said, boy, I have a deal for you. Air Force Institute of Technology. I said, Air Force Institute of Technology, what is that? Well, the Air Force runs their own graduate school at Dayton, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton. It's the lesser known of the Navy runs school out in California Naval Postgraduate School. So that's the Air Force version. And they run a very tailored program on nuclear engineering focused on nuclear explosives. So I ended up there. Got a master's degree in nuclear engineering. Again, the curriculum, I took one class on power generation, and then I had a series of courses called Bombs 1, Bombs 2, and Bombs 3. Finished up school, and then my first assignment was out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. And so my first assignment was as a technical director of Defense Threat Reduction Agency, ITRA, first acronym, has a thing called the Large Blast Thermal Simulator down at White Sands Missile Range. And this thing is the largest shock tube in the world. And so two of the primary effects of nuclear weapons is first you get the thermal pulse, and then you get a shock wave. So heat followed up by pressure. And so this facility is built and designed to do full-scale nuclear weapons effects testing. So they get the thermal pulse, they have things that are almost like rocket engines, come up on the floor, they fire up for a few seconds, you get that thermal pulse, and then the way that we generated the shock wave, so we had a bunch of cylinders with compressed gas, and then had a metallic, almost like a bottle cap in there. And on the end of that bottle cap, we would use detonating cord, and in a kind of a crisscross pattern, and then explosively detonate that bottle cap, releases all that pressurized gas, and you get a blast wave that is pretty equivalent to a nuclear weapon. So we got to, the Army was sponsoring a test series to look at the effects of non-ideal air blast. So a lot of the live nuclear weapons effects testing was done in the deserts of New Mexico and Nevada, which is desert. So a lot of the world isn't like the desert. And so we needed to do some testing to simulate what would happen in those non-desert environments. And then this is after the moratorium. We're not doing nuclear weapons effects testing anymore, live stuff. So it's all computer codes. And what you got to do is you got to get data to make sure that the codes are calibrated. So we got to do that. And I got the opportunity to roll Soviet T-72 tanks using this thing. And then this is during the Clinton administration. So there wasn't a lot of money going into nuclear weapons and nuclear weapons effects testing. So we got an assignment that was sponsored by, this is time, GSA, all people, you've seen them in the news. But they were building a new federal courthouse in Las Vegas, and were interested in improving, and this is interesting that they had the foresight before 9/11, improving the survivability of high-risk federal buildings to conventional explosives. So we were evaluating some technologies, both in the construction of the building and then different kind of laminates that we would put on glass, so that if a truck bomb came, and this is before Timothy McVeigh too, truck bomb comes, you don't get that flying glass penetrating into cause injury to the occupants of the building. So we did some explosive testing there. And then one of the things that the Army gives you is an opportunity to do a lot of different things. So you do a lot of moving geographically, and then a lot of different jobs. So after that, they assigned me to an arms control technology directorate. So this one wasn't as fun because I wasn't blowing stuff up. But the Clinton administration was thinking about a follow-on treaty to start, Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. So Mr. Clinton thought it would be a good idea to have Russians coming out and watching us take apart our nuclear weapons at the plant in Amarillo, Texas, Texas. So the Department of Defense and the Department of Energy didn't think that was a good idea. Having Russians running around watching us take our weapons apart. A lot of classification issues and security. So we got the Department of Defense and the Department of Energy got together and said, you know what, let's do a technology demonstration. Let's figure out how we would do this with technology and procedures, and then kind of prove to the administration that it wasn't a good idea. So for 6 months, I would get on a plane in Albuquerque, fly out to Amarillo, and did some of the testing of the stuff that we're looking at. And we actually convinced the administration that it wasn't a good idea. Does that mean? So then I went back. Let maybe I got to make this one point at the beginning. So all the stuff I'm describing is as an active duty officer, but all of the things that I'm going to talk about, you know, while I was in the military, I had government, civil servants, civilians, and contractors working. So just because, don't think that you need to be in the military to do these kinds of things, because you can do it as a civil servant in government or as a government contractor. All these opportunities, except for the stuff like going into the war and going to Cuba and stuff. You pretty much have to wear anything to do that, but almost everything else, you know, you can do as a civilian. So after Albuquerque, I went to an Army school at Leavenworth, called that the short course. So if you break the rules, you get to the long course in the prison, but then there's a short course at the schoolhouse. And then I was assigned back to the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, this time in Washington, D.C. And I showed up, I think I signed in maybe 3 weeks before 9/11. And then 9/11 happened, and 9/11 was Tuesday. And on Saturday, all the airports were still closed. I got in a car and drove down to Tampa and started planning the invasion of Afghanistan. So we did the planning, we went in, and then I was a liaison again with the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. And as we started to put the boots on the ground, we had some sites that we thought Al-Qaeda was doing some weapons of mass destruction. They were playing around with chemicals and biological material and some kind of crude radiological stuff. So the Defense Intelligence Agency had a capability to go in and look at the ChemBio, they had the ChemBio Intelligence Support Team. And then the Defense Threat Reduction Agency had a capability to do nuclear radiological search. So you may have heard about the Department of Energy has a NEST, nuclear emergency support team now, it's a big search team. So they do support domestically, and then the Department of Defense has a similar capability for overseas. So what we did was we put together the nuclear search capability that DOD or that DITRA had with the ChemBio stuff that the intelligence agency had, and then went in and you do exploitation. So you go in kind of like CSI. So you get evidence at one site, and I think we had 14 sites that we had identified before we put people on the ground. And then as you take the information from the one site, it leads you to 3 or 4 more. And so by the end of it, I think we ended up with 72 different sites that we rolled up. The other thing that we did was the Taliban was using caves and these underground facilities as sanctuary. So we DITRA had a weaponeering tool that you use to set the fuse settings for some of these earth-penetrating weapons. So what we would do was we would identify, look at satellite imagery, see cave entrance, and then we would use the tool and then tell the Air Force what to set the fuses for to destroy the caves. So we call that cave pointing. Did that for a while. And then the other kind of interesting thing was when we were chasing Osama through Tora Bora, the cave complex, we were using B-52s and B-1s to try to actually create avalanches, to try to, and as you know, wasn't successful. Came back after spending 3 months down in Tampa, went back to DC and was managed a program called the Warplane Support Program. So the Department of Defense divides the world up into different regions and has a regional headquarters that's responsible for that piece of the globe. So Tampa was U.S. Central Command. They have their Middle East region. There's a command over in Europe, U.S. that has Europe, and then they just recently stood up one for Africa. So led by a 4-star general, I have a joint staff. When I say joint staff, that's all the services, Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, that's some other folks do. But they don't have a lot of folks that have the WMD planning. So this wartime support program, we would come in and help the planning staff come up with the contingency plans to combat weapons of mass destruction and do counter-proliferation. So we don't want, counter-proliferation is keeping the folks that we don't want to have nuclear weapons capability from getting it. So we did that for a while, and then I was reassigned to be the operations officer for a program called Mighty Guardian. And Mighty Guardian is the evaluation of the Department of Defense security policy. So if the policy says that you have to have 15 guys show up 5 minutes after there's a security incident involving a nuclear weapon, do you win? So the only way to do that is you have to run exercises, like full scale, not with real ammunition, but we use a laser engagement system. And so I had a group of special forces soldiers that would replicate a terrorist element. It's called a postulated threat. And there's a policy that says what the postulated threat's capabilities are. And then we would run exercises over and over and over again. You have the 15 guys, they show up in 5 minutes, do you win? And in DoD policy, it's not just the bad guys win if they get and can touch the weapon. Because if you touch the weapon, you can put an explosive device and you can destroy the weapon. And stealing it and destroying it is just as bad in terms of DoD policy. So got to run around and try to steal and destroy nuclear weapons from the Air Force and the Navy. They like to have an Army do that because we didn't have a dog in the fight. In '92, the Army got out of the nuclear delivery business. So as coming in as an honest broker, we could, find the flaws in the Air Force and the Navy. I did that for a while, and then I got shipped over to Korea. So I was the nuclear planner for the U.S. Forces Korea. And the highlight of that one was putting together or updating the offensive nuclear target list that the United States has. So that was we ran about 6-month effort to refresh the target list, and that went all the way up to the Secretary of Defense for approval. So that was a very high visibility. I got a lot of help from people, depending on the White House, on making sure we did a good job.
I assume that was a global weapons list you were working on, or just for that region?
No, this was exclusively for North Korea. But what that did was it kind of exposed me to nuclear command and control. And so after spending a year in Korea, my follow-on assignment was at the Pentagon, assigned to the Joint Staff, looking at the global picture. So I ran a program that evaluated DoD's nuclear command and control. So every year, I mentioned we have the different regional headquarters. Well, certain of those headquarters have nuclear responsibilities. So the 4-star general, do you have a question, Maggie? So the responsibility is to talk the president through a nuclear strike under crisis procedures. So we would build an evaluation scenario, and we would go out to each of these commands and run an exercise. We'd have folks that role play Secretary of Defense, role play the president, and see how they do. So got to do a lot of traveling all over the world, and got to go train the guys that carry the football for the president. And got to go to the White House. Every time we would change the plan, we had to go over there and make sure that the information that they had was up to date. So that was another great, fun job. Left the Joint Staff and then finished up with the Defense Intelligence Agency. And what I did there was start building a capability to do nuclear forensics. So back in the Cold War, if somebody was going to attack us, something was going to come in on a missile. We have a satellite detection system that if the Chinese or the Russians launch a missile at us, that those systems pick it up, and it's pretty easy to say this is where it came from, and then kind of send them back, return to sender. But in the new security environment, where you have non-state actors, they don't necessarily have a piece of real estate they call their own, are likely not to use a missile to deliver a weapon. You could have a device show up in a shipping container and say, Long Beach, California, Port of Baltimore. The first thing we know is there's a big mushroom cloud. We don't have the warning of seeing a missile come in. And then there's the, who did it? Okay, was it a weapon that a weapon state provided to a terrorist organization? Was it a terrorist organization that built a weapon? And if they did, was there a state actor that provided them maybe the nuclear material to build a weapon? So it's a lot more difficult process. And so there was a movie, I think it was Tom Clancy had a movie called The Sum of All Fears. And if you go back and watch that, there's that scenario happens. I think that was actually it in Baltimore, or I think it's at a football game that the weapon goes off. And in that movie, there's a couple of Air Force guys that go and they pull out a notebook and they say, oh yeah, this material is standard for that's Hollywood and Tom Clancy's best guess. So we don't quite have a very robust capability to do that. So the government is putting a full court press on to develop that capability. And it's a interagency, when I say interagency, multiple departments within government. So that President Bush signed a policy that laid out responsibilities among the government. So if nuclear material, highly enriched uranium, plutonium, in a non-weaponized form is found, the Department of Homeland Security has got responsibility for doing it. If a weapon, so highly enriched uranium, plutonium, in a weaponized package, before it goes off, is found, the Department of Energy has got responsibility. And then guess who got the hard one? Post-detonation, Department of Defense. So we.
So are you saying that if we were to locate a nuclear device, that we would not be able to take the components from it, the nuclear components from it, to determine where it came from or the manufacturer?
I would say that we are building the capability, a more robust capability to do that. And so at the Defense Intelligence Agency, I was working to build some capability to it's a red light. This is typical. I was red stuff. All right, well, I guess while we're taking this technical break, is this interesting?
Very.
Like I said, I get a lot of questions, so if you want to go into detail,
So what do you think is the highest percentage has ever been for a nuclear attack against the United States? And what do you think does happen?
Let me see if I understand the question. On my opinion on,
What do you think is the highest percentage of attacks for a nuclear attack on the United States?
very long, we hear it all, and we really don't get a true sense of it from the media. But what it is, as far as the government, I mean, are they taking that seriously?
Yes, the government's taking that seriously. And yes, they are back in business. Yes, they,
The assessment is that the Iranian regime is trying to develop an offensive nuclear capability beyond power generation.
Not to get political, but do you have yourself have a particular projection that, on the date when they might actually?
Yeah, I think I probably better not answer that question.
Okay. I'll try
I mean, I would say that I personal opinion, I think they're on the path, and it's sooner rather than later. Okay, so back to nuclear forensics. So one of the, and a lot of people, I don't like to use the fingerprint analogy, but what you gotta do in order to go back and after you've seized either material, or weapon, or in the event of a detonation, you pick up debris. And then try to do the CSI type forensic analysis to go, again, where did the material come from? The first thing the president's going to want to know in the shipping container scenario, was it ours? You know, that's kind of the first one, that answer. And so you have to have, if you have an unknown, you got to have a known to compare it to make the comparison. And so we have a concerted effort now to go out and characterize our stuff, because when we were making the stuff, it was more design specs. You can have this much of these different contaminants, and it wasn't, okay, this is what the material looks like at this point in time. Because as you change the technology of your weapons infrastructure, the signatures change. So not only do you have to have a representative sample of, say, material from X facility, but you've got to have a representative sample over periods of time as procedures and technology change, the signature changes. So you have to have a really comprehensive database of material signatures.
So at the end of the Cold War, I fought for all of the law. We didn't have the opportunity, for instance, to test the components of the Russian nuclear.
Yeah, I'm not going to
Okay.
I'm not going to answer that.
Okay. I have a question, but might be able to answer. Are we purchasing some of the bombs from some of the news from Russia for purposes of enrichment? Are we
Yeah, there's a
getting
program,
material out of
it's
that?
megatons to megawatts. So we are taking material that was at one point in the nuclear weapons stream and then down blending it to make commercial reactor fuel. So there's a program.
Is there any other countries that are doing that, Spain or England? Or we yet?
I don't know about other countries. So what, again, going back to this forensics thing, so you got to have the capability to go in and build, the Department of Energy is putting together a program called the Nuclear Materials Information Program that will be the repository of all this material characterization that you can come back to afterwards and do your comparison. So again, you know, it's pretty easy to get our stuff. It's still a big effort. It's less easy to get material from places that don't want us to have access to it. So North Korea, Iran, those are places that it's a tough problem. So looking at ways of overcoming those challenges.
We'll kind of put that one to the track.
Yeah, it's actually a, yeah, he was asking about reprocessing spent nuclear fuel. I believe I think it was Jimmy Carter that set the policy that the U.S. would not reprocess spent fuel to extract plutonium. I think the goal of the policy was to set an example, hoping that the rest of the world would follow. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of countries that don't. And it really, I kind of wish they would relook at that policy, because we're really, the problems with Yucca Mountain, what do you do with this stuff? And then when burying material that can be, it is the ultimate renewable.
I'm sure that Homeland Security here, they have to monitor all that because
Right.
they have to run hands on the resources.
I'm not, it probably is, I'm not familiar, I don't work in that area, so I can't speak to the ongoing programs. Okay, so DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. So that's where I retired after 22 years in the Army with DIA. I did a quick stint as a contractor, kind of doing the same job as I was trying to sell my house up in Virginia, and then finally got the house sold and got an opportunity to work for a company called Louden-Pro2Serve. And that's what I'm going to talk about next. So now, a couple of slides. This is the one on the right.
It's the one with the solid black. There you go.
There we go. Okay, so, and this is just to give you a quick overview of the company that I work for now. Headquarters is in Oak Ridge. We are one of the few commercial activities that are actually on the Oak Ridge National Laboratory campus. So we're, I don't know if is anybody familiar with? Okay, great. So if you came in, there's two portals that come in. You come in from the west side, or the first building that you run into after you go through the security checkpoint. Pro2Serve's pedigree is mainly with the Department of Energy. But the headquarters is here at Oak Ridge, but you see the other satellite offices. So we have smaller off-site locations at most of the places, main places within the DOE nuclear weapons complex. It used to be a small company. I think we broke the threshold a year or two ago. So I don't know if you're familiar with government contracting, but you get certain benefits for being a small business, and we don't take those anymore. Mostly engineers. This is the customer base. As I said, the pedigree was mainly supporting the Department of Energy and the nuclear weapons complex. We are starting to diversify, working more for the Department of Defense and Department of Homeland Security. This is all I want to say about that slide there. The company is broken up into 4 divisions. I am in the National Security Operations. Up in this box. Our division is broken up into 2 business units. The defense programs is focused on support to the U.S. stockpile and, keeping our capability going. And then I run this part, which is the nuclear non-proliferation, which is the keeping the bad guys from getting the capability part of it. GTRI is the Global Threat Reduction Initiative. This is a program, our sponsor is the National Nuclear Security Administration, NNSA. I'm so used to acronyms that I don't even know what the acronyms are. But they, we did a really great job of locking down our domestic nuclear radiological material here in the United States. So the threat of the terrorist organization getting a hold of this stuff is not good. But security is only as good as the weakest link. So just because we've got our stuff locked down, our friends and neighbors globally, unless they have their stuff protected, it's just the bad guys are going to go to where it's So NNSA is providing funding to foreign governments and assistance to lock down the material. So we have a program, we will go into a nuclear radiological site, we do a security assessment, we have a toolkit, a menu of options, improving guns, gates, and guards, putting in hardened doors, locks, badge readers. Some of the countries just, either they don't have the money to do it, or they don't have the technology to put some of these equipment and procedures in place. So what NNSA does is we provide all of the funding to do the initial upgrade, and then we pay for 3 years of sustainment. So off-site monitoring, 3-year maintenance program. In order to participate in the program, the governments have to say that after that first 3-year freebie, they're going to sustain the system after and pick up the cost of sustaining it. So we have the contract to do the upgrades in Europe. I've got Hungary, Slovakia, Bosnia, Croatia, Macedonia, and Montenegro. And then in Africa, I've got Botswana, Lebanon, Rwanda, and Benin. So those are the countries that my company does. The similar work is being conducted by Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, Sandia National Laboratory, and we might be one of the labs that are doing that work. HEU transparency is highly enriched uranium. We send teams over to Russia to do material balance exercises to make sure that none of the material is being converted. We send folks over there a couple weeks at a time. Language services, we provide interpreters to some of the technical teams from the national laboratories that go over to Russia and other countries. And they're not listed. We just won a contract with the Department of Homeland Security. The Domestic Nuclear Detection Office is putting together a global nuclear detection architecture. So it's a system of systems, both here at the U.S. borders and likely transshipment points within the United States, and then also in ports, rail shipment points, airports overseas, to try to identify any material that would be ultimately found in the United States.
How do you deal with the language barriers? I know it's got to be an issue.
It's tough. So the work that I described with GTRI, I subcontract to local nationals to actually install the equipment. One of the goals of the program is that they want the equipment to be locally procured as much as possible so that they have access to the spare parts. So I have a challenge working through time zones, and then I have a challenge with language. So it takes sometimes 3 or 4 iterations going back and forth. I try to use email as much as I can, but sometimes we're talking past each other, and sometimes you have to actually get face to face with an interpreter and make sure that everybody's on the same page. So it's a huge challenge. It makes it a lot harder.
The material laborers we get the sites and material, are those abandoned sites from Soviet era?
No, these are active, mostly hospitals that have radiological sources for therapeutic applications. And then we also do industrial sites that are doing radiography. And it's great material if you want to make a bomb out of it. And so we go in, and again, we put guns, gates, and guards around that stuff, so make sure that that people that we don't want having access to it. So that's, and I know less about the defense programs, but again, we provide some folks, a lot of the folks in Pro2Serve retired out of both the DOE and the NNSA, so they've worked 20, 30 years. and then go back and provide their expertise. And then we have an environmental management division, a facilities infrastructure engineering, and then integrated physical security. And this division is actually where the work I was talking about, GTRI, going overseas. They do a lot of the same type of thing to U.S. facilities and to the national laboratories. That, I guess I don't want to, coming up on, I do want to leave some time for some more question and answer. I did leave the contact information for our recruiter. We do have intern positions typically in the summer. However, I'm told that the opportunities fluctuate yearly based on some funding. So I'm not sure what our outlook looks like this year, but what they do is post those intern opportunities on our corporate website. So if you're interested in pursuing an opportunity, that's where to go. Rusty our main. I talked about flesh peddlers in the Army. Rusty is the prototype flesh peddler. Appreciate your attention. I think we got. Are we on a hard stop at 3? Okay. So I'll stay here as long as these folks want to talk to me. I'll open it up to any questions or comments.
Just looking for the employment opportunities and that year that the internship is possibility. Does that mean we have to climb that educational ladder into a 4-year degree program or a master's or a doctorate?
Yeah, I would say that there is a spectrum of opportunities that goes from the PhD all the way down to the 2 years. I wouldn't say that the number of opportunities is equal, but there are opportunities across the whole educational spectrum. Any other?
The HDU transparency program, is that part of the megawatts program, or where are you applying that?
No, and I don't know a lot about that program. I don't believe it's. I think it's actually just doing material balance at the Russian sites.
That's part of our program.
Yeah, I can hook you up with a guy that runs that program. So if you guys want
I hear a lot of people talk about the Y-12 up in Oak Ridge. What is their performance in this?
YCLO is part of NNSA, so they're part of the nuclear weapons complex. They're getting ready to build a uranium processing facility. So they are, within the complex, they are the experts. It's the Fort Knox of highly enriched uranium. And it's, so they're one valley away from Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Any other?
What level of cooperation do you have with the NRC and Department of Transportation with regard to like activated sources and supplies for medical facilities?
The only time, I don't do anything with NRC, because mostly my work is overseas. We did do, and it was before I came into the program, but we did, under GTRI, recover some spent nuclear fuel from some research reactors overseas. So we did get involved with some of the transportation once the stuff hit the United States, get it to the final disposition sites. All right, again, appreciate you coming in on Saturday. Coming down from Knoxville, it wasn't easy to do this during the week, so I appreciate you taking the time. I'll hang out if people want to ask questions one-on-one, but thanks for inviting me, and hopefully it was